Well, good morning and Shabbat Shalom and Hag Sameach. I'm Rabbi Ed Feinstein. This is Valley Beth Shalom Torah study for a Shabbos morning. It is Shabbos of Sukkot, Shabbat of Sukkot, and all of us are either in our homes or outside in our Sukkot, enjoying this beautiful, beautiful holiday. Good morning to my dear friends, Rabbi Sherre Hirsch of the American Jewish University and Rabbi Marc Gellman of the Aspen Jewish Congregation. And we're delighted to share this wonderful Sukkot morning. So holidays, the high holidays are past us. And the next set of holidays that come in the Jewish calendar are the holiday is the holiday of Sukkot, which is a complex of holiday itself. We build a sukkah, we build a little booth out in the backyard and move out there and share feasting and celebration of this beautiful fall holiday outside. It's the complete opposite of Yom Kippur. Instead of the fasting and self-denial of Yom Kippur, it is feasting and celebrating. Instead of the looking inward of Yom Kippur, it's a looking outward into the world of nature. Get to look up at the sky through the leaves of your sukkah and feel the wind on your face and the rain. If it rains a little bit, it rained here the other day, and a little sunshine on your face. It's actually a beautiful, beautiful response to the self-deprivation and self-flagellation of Yom Kippur. So, Mark, when you open you step out to your sukkah, what are you thinking about?
Well, I'm thinking about the old debate between Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Akiva. We're talking about the major leagues of rabbis here. So, I mean, these are the two. With Meir, that's the top three, really. And they had a debate. And Akiva was right, but his view was, what is this? The Lord caused the children of Israel to dwell in Sukkot in their wanderings in the desert. And that, of course, is not true. It isn't true in any verse in the entire Tanakh. It never says, and the children of Israel dwelt in Sukkot. In fact, the opposite is the case. You know, Ma tovu ohalecha. How beautiful are your tents? It's always tents, and wanderers dwelt in tents. But Eliezer, who was really pretty much a hard ass about this thing, he said, look, it says Sukkot, it means Sukkot, it was Sukkot. And Akiva says, no, I don't think so. The Sukkot is a metaphor. That it really is the clouds of glory, the Sukkot Shlomech, sort of that God surrounded the children of Israel with clouds, protective clouds. And of course, there was a cloud that they followed, and the pillar of fire and the pillar of smoke. And these clouds protected them from the, it says, Akiva says, from the snakes and the scorpions, and it protected them from heat. And so he makes this whole beautiful midrash, which also isn't true, but it's no midrash is true. And ein meshivin ala darush, you don't debate midrash. But I normally would be with Akiva, because I'd say, yeah, he's right. The Torah's wrong. We didn't dwell in these Sukkot. And it says we're supposed to because we did, but we didn't. So the fact of the matter is, I've come in my dotage to believe that they're both right, and that both of them have touched on one of the two great lessons of Yontif that we're supposed to take out of Yontif. We talk a lot about the lessons of Yontif when we're praying and what we're doing, but not what we take out. And what we take out, I think, is Eliezer and Akiva. From Eliezer, we take out the idea of impermanence. The Unasana Toga. We don't know who's going to be alive next year. And the Sukkah is, yeah, we did all the praying, but we all know no, some of us are not going to make it. And that fact is not going away. And we live in an impermanent existence. Human finitude is the ultimate truth of our life. We're not going to live forever. And that's why Olam Haba, world to come. Let me just put in a plug for it every week. That's what we're really about, giving people hope in the face of death. Okay, the second is protection, the clouds of glory, that no matter how you see it, no matter what you think, you're surrounded by God's protection. Now, that doesn't mean that nothing bad is ever going to happen to you. But it does mean you're always going to be protected no matter what happens. It means you are accompanied. You are accompanied. You're not alone. Your journey is not a solitary wandering in a world of chaos and anomie. And that, I think, is the other great lesson, that we live in an impermanent world, but we are accompanied by a permanent God.
That's beautiful.
That's so beautiful, Mark. Beautiful.
If I had a shul, I might preach that message.
Sherry, talk to me about the joy of this holiday. So Mark talks about vulnerability on the one hand, impermanence, finitude on the one hand, and on the other hand, the celebration that goes on. So the principal mitzvah is v'hayita ach sameach, be joyful.
Right. This is my favorite holiday, this idea of that you're commanded to be joyful, especially following some of the introspection that can be a bit heavy from Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. This idea that you're going to go and live in a booth outside your house. And I have so many things that I love about this holiday, Eddie. I first have to share a image of our Sukkah. Can you see it? That's our Sukkah this year. It's at nighttime. And what you'll notice is we bring in our fine dishes. We bring in and we set the table like really like it's Shabbos in our house. And there's a sugya, a portion, a little section of the Talmud that says you're commanded to bring in your finest dishes into the Sukkah. And the rabbis ask why. I mean, this is a booth and it's so fragile, and like you don't want to bring your best dishes in there and watch everything get ruined. And the metaphor, the lesson is you bring the finest parts of yourselves to the most vulnerable of places. You take those parts of yourselves that is so special, and you bring it to your relationships. You bring it to those places that are really, quote, vulnerable. And I love the intimacy of Sukkot, right? Can I add one more thing that I love, that because I love this holiday so much and it's such a big deal in our house, is I cannot get over when we sit in our Sukkah that we look back at this permanent house and I'm sitting with my family and all I can think of with all the things that are in our house, all we really need is each other, right? There's this idea that we gain this perspective every year that we may have lost, or we need to be reminded of, that everything, stuff is in the house, but that which is most treasured is sitting together and as a family. And I just love it, love it, love it. That's the joy.
That's beautiful. All of our holidays have a quality of experiential experience to them. So Passover, we're not just going to tell the story of Pesach. We're going to eat what they ate. We're going to experience the meal that our ancestors experienced the night before they left Egypt. And on Shavuot, we stay up all night learning Torah as if we were standing on the foot of Mount Sinai, waiting for Moses to come down. This is a holiday in which we literally move into the history. I mean, it's a experiential installation.
That is so beautiful, Eddie.
Yeah.
That is so beautiful.
You know, museums do this now, where you'll walk into a room of your museum, and then what's there is not simply a piece of art on the wall, but the entire room is an installation, they call it, and you experience. And what we're doing is moving into the experience and living in the same way, at least in our imaginations, that our ancestors lived. And what's so remarkable of that is it's a powerful meditation. Both of you have indicated this so beautifully. It's a powerful meditation on security and insecurity, on security and vulnerability. As long as I live in a house with a solid roof and solid walls and windows that open and close, and of course our houses are more than that. We have electric lights and air conditioning and every other power that gives us the illusion that we are in control of the environment and that we can control the bubble in which we live. You know, we maintain this illusion that we're in charge and that we're safe. And it's a beautiful illusion to go to sleep at night and know that you're safe behind locked doors and closed windows is a very beautiful thing for someone who's worried about what's outside. But once a year, The tradition says, I want you to leave your house. I don't want you to have a solid roof over your head or solid walls around you. I want you to go outside and live in an environment where the world can touch you, and let the world touch you. Let the wind and the rain and the sun touch you, and feel the way in which you're intimately and ultimately connected to the world outside, and that there are really these separations that we involve. These separations are not authentic. They're not true. And that kind of sense of impermanence and vulnerability, that goes along with the idea of the joy of the holiday, because nevertheless, you are to enjoy. Nevertheless, you are to experience a feast with family and with friends. Nevertheless, you're to experience the joy of this beautiful season. And that is exactly what this holiday is about. And it takes an act of will. I've heard it takes an act of will to build a sukkah, for one thing. My mother used to say the mitzvah isn't just to build the sukkah, the mitzvah is to take it down before Hanukkah. That's the act of will. But it takes an act of will to go outside and to say, even though I know that this is insecure, I know that there is a quality of vulnerability, of riskiness to be human, still I'm going to find joy in the relationships, in the moments that I share, in these moments of feasting and singing and celebrating. That's what the holiday gives us. Now, on this holiday, let's extend this one more moment. There's a book that's read. In fact, it's read today on Shabbos of Sukkot, which is the book of Kohala, the book of Ecclesiastes. Everyone knows the Ecclesiastes text because they know the third chapter, which became Pete Seeger's song, and then the Byrds recorded it, and everybody else recorded it.
Right, leave it to American culture to popularize Ecclesiastes.
Yes, of all the lines of the Bible, to everything there is.
Right. I always think, really? That's where they went? But okay.
Well, he added 8 words.
Yeah.
A time for peace, I pray it is not too late.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's the
I
text.
swear it's not too late. Well,
whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. But that's, other than that, it's the text.
Right. Well, but
so he added those 8 words.
But the book is an extraordinary reflection on human life. He basically says, I'm going to go and look for that which survives death. So Mark, this takes us right back to your point. I'm going to go and look for that which I can invest myself in, devote myself to, which survives the vulnerability and impermanence of human life. It survives my finitude. And he goes looking for that which you can do in the world, which will grant you immortality. And he looks at wealth and pleasure and wisdom and even righteousness. And in the end, he says, we're all going to die, each of us, and none of these things that we spend so much time pursuing can erase that brutal and difficult fact. And therefore, he says, the only thing you're given in life is to enjoy the moments of your life and enjoy all the gifts that life brings and live in the rhythm of human existence. And so the first question is, tell me about Kohelet, and is he right? And the second question is, what is he doing on Sukkot, this holiday of joy? Mark, go ahead.
And the third final question is, what verse would you pick out to be your American culture song? But
okay, we'll get to that to the end. That's
American
good.
Pie, for sure.
No.
Okay, but anyway, it's not that he's wrong, it's that he lived too soon. And you don't get any points for living too soon.
What does that mean, Mark?
I'll tell you what I mean. What I mean is, he needed something he didn't have. And what he didn't have was Olam Haba, just like Job. He's looking around and he's saying, I'm looking for something that gives meaning to an otherwise meaningless existence here on earth. And I need some hope in the face of all of the suffering and all the misery and all the rewarding of bad people, Rava Tovlo, Tovaralo, all this stuff. I can't find it because Judaism hadn't invented it then. And the reason they hadn't invented it then is that Judaism lacked the one thing it needed to move into the modern world, even in the medieval world, and that was Aristotle. It needed a philosophical system, which it never had. And so in 331, when Alexander the Great came through and he brought his tutor, Aristotle, Aristotle hooked up with a few young intellectuals. They had coffee, they had hummus, they had a good time. And he explained to them about matter and form, how the entire existence of the universe depends on these two principles, matter and form, potentiality, which is matter, and form, which is actuality. And they interact in various ways. He had a debate with Plato, and it's immortalized in the School of Athens by Raphael, where they're in the center. And
wait, Mark, I'm interrupting you for a second. What do you say to the person who's listening, who's like, when you talk about Olam Haba, it resonates of a Christian notion of heaven?
Yes, because you had the wrong rabbi. Then you never had rabbis who talked about Olam Haba, and you never had a rabbi who translated the second blessing of the Torah for every aliyah. You get up there and you say, "B'chaye olam natah b'tochenu." The problem is no one knows Hebrew, so they don't know they don't realize they're affirming with every aliyah that there is eternal life. And Christians, of course, with the message of Jesus and the fact that they emerged in a Greek world, which had philosophical understandings in which matter and form interact, and your soul, a new concept, not in the Bible, your neshama is pure form, part of God. It goes out of your body when your body dies. And we integrated that entire system, and it became a central part of Judaism. And then when Christian preachers started talking about it, all of a sudden, rabbis said, it sounds so Christian to say that stuff, but it isn't. They took it from us. And the reason that there's 1 out of every 3 people on earth is a Christian, and there's 49 Jews in the world, the reason for this, I think, the fundamental reason, aside from murder and genocide and low birth rate and a bunch of other things, the fact is that the reason we got an end run around us theologically is we gave up our principal belief that brings people hope, the idea that death is not the end of us. If this was crazy Gellman bringing Christian stuff that he learned from his friend Tom Hartman, I could plead even guilty to that. But the truth of the matter is, it's Jewish stuff that we have forgotten. And what is just galling to me is that the things we have forgotten, this idea that death is not the end of us, is the most important thing we ever taught, because it gives people hope.
I really think one time we need to discuss all the things that Christians adopted from the Jews that we need to reclaim or re-identify. I think that would be a really interesting conversation at one point.
Right. So Sherre, Mark responds to Kohelet by saying Kohelet is missing this fundamental idea that arose after his time of an afterlife. And that's the answer to his question about what survives and what's meaningful and what is it we invest ourselves in. When you read Kohelet, why is it part of Sukkot, and what is it saying to us?
Well, I always ask the question of why is Kohelet part of the Canon, which is the Torah, right? Why is it there? Because it's dark, right? And we have other dark stories, but this is like, what's the point? Really, what's the point? And I think it's because, and I can't speak for everyone, but there are moments of our life, especially liminal moments, when we've gone through something that we really question, what are we doing here and why? That we deeply feel and relate to the prophet. And I think it's there to recognize that you are going to feel this at periods of your life, whatever seasons, times, moments. And I want you, and this is God speaking, not to feel alone. In those moments, I want you to truly identify that this is part of the human experience, this feeling of true hopelessness. And the interesting thing is, after Kohelet, it falls in the day of joy, because you have to in the week of joy, because you can't let it dominate you, right? And it's interesting because, I know from personal experience, I've had real moments of hopelessness. Today, American culture, the minute you feel hopeless, they're like, you're depressed, you need medicine. I'm a big believer in therapy and in medicine. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is there's an immediate diagnosis the minute you feel hopelessness. And I think that's really about extended hopelessness. I think there are times you just feel hopeless. I mean, I can tell you after my mother died, I felt a true sense of hopelessness. And reading Kohelet gave me this sense of I'm not alone. And it's not that the Torah is supposed to be a companion book to your life, but it is supposed to recognize that you're human, right? And it's to help you confirm your humanity.
So what answer do you find? Do you find an answer in him, or do you find an answer elsewhere?
I don't find an answer in him. I've never seen Kohelet as an answer. I see it as more as an identification, as a sense of camaraderie.
As a reflection of that hopelessness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would turn it a slightly different way. Kohelet is a book which begins with the very famous sort of overture, nothing new under the sun. And he looks all around him and he sees that the world is built in cycles, right? All the rivers run to the sea and the sea is not full. The wind blows this way, the wind blows that way. What he does is he does what most of human culture has done for most of the generations of our collective existence. He looks into nature and he sees that nature is built on cycles. It's winter, spring, summer, fall all over again. And it's birth and growth and maturity and decay and death. And it's built on cycles. And the problem with building it on cycles is that there's no room for an individual in a cycle. That is, it's true that out of death is rebirth in the species, and out of death is rebirth in the nature of life as a whole. But for my own personal existence, there's no rebirth. And so what you end up with is this terrible despair that both of you have reflected on. And I think that part of the beginning of the book of Kohelet is we're sitting in the Sukkah and we're surrounded by nature and we're looking up at the sun and the stars and we're feeling the wind on our faces and we see the leaves of the schach of the Sukkah around us. And this is a warning not to take that lesson from nature, because there's another way to look at it, which is history is a line. We're on a journey. We're moving from the house of bondage to the promised land. And in that way, each of us matters because there is progress and regress along that line. It's a different sense of time. The other thing about Kohelet, which I think is very important, and I've spoken about this terribly many times, is that he's alone. I mean, he says, I'm going to go find what survives death. And he looks at wealth, and he talks about all the money he spent on himself. And then he says pleasure, and he says all the pleasure he took for himself. And he says wisdom, he says all the knowledge I gained for myself. And he even says righteousness, which is religion. He says all the religion I did for myself. Oh, I can't find meaning. Well, hello. I mean, if you ask any one of us, where do you find your deepest meaning? We would all say in the family that I've created, I've shared with, the children I've raised, the friends, the community that I gather around myself, the community that I share my life with, the people that I've shared, the people that I've given to. And if you go back,
what you said at the beginning, Eddie, the experience, right? The experience of living a meaningful life is what you treasure, and he's looking for something else. So it really is a foil to what you said at the beginning. That's beautiful.
Right. And you invite people into your sukkah. That's the whole notion of a sukkah. To sit by yourself in a sukkah is not a holiday. But here too, if you run each of his experiments and you say, there's pleasure in the world, but pleasure shared is a whole different experience than pleasure taken. Right. And wealth brings responsibility to share and to give and to help. And you feel the claim of the world on you. When it asks you, help us, use the wealth as a power to fix the world. Wisdom and righteousness are given. These are all things that are given away. The most wonderful irony of the book of Kohelet that I love is if you really thought that nothing in the world ever changes, which is what he says at the beginning, if you really thought that there's nothing you can do about the human condition, why write a book? Write a book because you have the presumption that you're going to make a difference, right?
Okay, that's hilarious. I've never thought about it, and it's so painfully obvious.
And the guy who says there's nothing new under the sun and nothing you can do can survive death, we're reading his book 3,500 years after he's gone.
the irony of that is brilliant.
Right.
Brilliant.
Kohelet is still alive. I read him this morning. I mean, that's because he's sharing, and in sharing, in teaching, in giving, in helping, in healing, you gain a sense of what life is all about.
But I would just add, the reason this all makes sense actually is that he's searching.
Yes.
And if you ask, I love the idea of he was too individualistic. There's a very strong similarity to Kierkegaard's work on Stages Along Life's Way, which he makes basically the same point, that there's no satisfaction from earthly pleasures. But the point is that if you look at Koheleth in a deep way, even all of that stuff, sharing and everyone you share with, they're going to die. Everyone you love in your family, they're going to die. And Kohelet has the guts to say, look, I'm looking at this. I'm looking at this straight, and I'm not buying the, Walt Disney fantasy life, fantasy Judaism. I'm not buying it. The fact is, everyone I love, everything I love is going to disappear and die and crumble. And so the answer to that, the obvious answer, the one he wants, the one Job wants, which he doesn't have either, because they're just before before Aristotle comes and teaches Judaism how to think. What you need is hope that transcends the impermanence of life. And there is only one answer to that. And that's what religion is built around. Every single religion does this, except Reform and conservative Judaism. and that minus Gellman, except them. The truth of the matter is people want hope in the face of death. And we brought them that, and we invented that. Well, we didn't invent it, but we adapted it from Greek thought. And that is what gives you hope, that you won't be separated forever from those you love. In the thousands of funerals I've done. So, Harry says on the edge of the grave, Blanche, I'm coming. I'm coming. I'm going to be with you. You have to ask yourself, is Harry lying? And Kohelet says, yeah, he's lying. There's nothing. But I'm saying Harry's right.
Okay.
And he's going to be with Blanche, and it's all going to work out. And they're going to say, this is it. Gellman was right. Why didn't
all I can hear, I think of Golden Girls when I hear Blanche. I don't know where you got that name, but
I just invented it this moment.
wait, can I add one thing? Because I've been thinking about it.
Please.
One of my favorite verses in the Bible is Upres Sukkot Shlomecha Aleinu Ve'al Kol Yisrael V'imru Amen. And God will spread over his or her shelter of peace to all of us and to all the world. Loose translation, bear with me. That's my theme song. Like that, I always thought should be the song of when they say we build the world, and not Michael Jackson, but they did those like universal songs with all
We Are the World, right? We
Are the World, with all the musicians coming together. I think that's the biblical verse I would use.
All right, so Sherre, let me ask you a question. So not to puncture your beautiful observation, but to ask you to extend it. If I want God to build above me a shelter, why a sukkah? A sukkah is a shelter which is a little shaky. A sukkah is a shelter whose roof isn't whole. Of all the images that one could take, why a sukkah?
So that question was asked by a student of mine 25 years ago. Mm-hmm. And I flipped it because first of all, because I don't know anything. And of course, it's like, you're going to get a much better answer from the person asking. And he said to me, oh, I've thought about this a lot. It's so that my father who passed away can make sure that he can always see me and I can see him. Now, there's a lot to unpack in there, but it goes to what Marc is saying, right?
Yes, it does.
It's assuming that heaven is up and it's a vertical and all those things. But if you put that aside, it goes right to what you're saying, Marc. It's that roof is very fragile so that we can see to that which we don't know, right? We can feel that sense of hope and we can be connected to that which we've lost. And so the fragility of it allows for that sort of osmosis to happen. So it goes right to what Marc's saying.
So when Sherre sits in her sukkah, she's thinking, Ufros aleinu sukkot shlomecha. Spread above us, God, a sukkah of peace. Mark, when you're in your sukkah, what are you thinking about? What's your prayer?
Well, my main mantra that I pray every day, Ivdu Adonai b'simcha. I pray that as a mantra.
I love that.
And that's my entire deal. People say, Gellman, there's lots of people who are brilliant, and you're among them. I mean, they say that. I'm very modest and tell you. They say more than that. But I'm just saying.
We've learned
very modest.
Nobody we've ever heard is brilliant and funny. And I say, well, it's all how you look at it. If you look at me as a rabbi, I'm hilarious. But if you look at me as a comedian, I'm really just, so. So the fact of the matter is, I've always been aware that I had a gift that I was funny. In fact, I called my 6th grade English teacher, Mrs. Wolf. I called her up a couple years ago. I said, Ms. Wolf, hi, it's Marc Gellman. Wow, Mark, look, I have one question for you, because I've been working with this priest, and I'm always the funny one. And I said, I never thought I was funny. I thought I was smart, but I never thought I was funny. Was I funny in 6th grade? And Mrs. Wolf said, Mark, you were the funniest student I ever had. And I said, well, why didn't you tell me? I could have been Seinfeld. I could have been somebody. I didn't, if I had known that in 6th grade. So whatever the gift is that I have, I've always seen the joyousness and humor in life. And so for me, it's, you're sitting in a pile of wood with some schach on top that you can't even pronounce. And you're sitting there and the rain's coming in on you if it's raining. And you're saying, this is hilarious. This is hilarious, because we're sitting there and we have a perfectly good house. And what are we doing here? And the idea is there's a joyousness in it. It's the one memory that my children take from their growing up in our house, the sukkah and eating in the sukkah. They say today, Dad, the fact that you schlepped around and built this sukkah, and we ate there and we had hot cocoa in the sukkah, that was really a memory that will take our whole lives. And so for me, this is the holiday that goes out of Yontif, Ivdu Adonai b'simcha, serve the Lord in joy. Whatever way you can serve God, don't make it onerous. Don't make it depressing. Don't make it sad. If you can't do something joyously for God, what is the point of all this? To do some kind of 6 taryag mitzvot that make you upset and depressed because you can't do them all? Or to worry that your jello isn't kosher? Is this what life is about? No, life has a joyousness to it. And that's the whole idea that Sukkah the Sukkah is supposed to take us to. Go out of Yontif, go out of all of this depressing Unisana Tokef world, and go and enjoy this life. And that's why Kohelet's there, to say, because I want you to have joy. And even though the Tanakh isn't finished with what I had to tell you, that has to do with Aristotle and the world to come. Listen, have fun and serve me. Yes, serve me, but serve me in joy.
That's beautiful. Thank you, Mark. And I simply enjoy, I find that as Sukkah turns your perspective for Yontif, for Yom Kippur, our visual perspective was vertical. It's me and God, and me and my inner life. And Sukkot comes and turns it horizontal. And I look around a table and see a table filled with friends and family and children and comrades and neighbors, and celebration around the table, and the gifts of the table, the gifts of being together to celebrate life. Given the finitude and the impermanence and the riskiness, of course, but this moment together, this moment is sanctified. And that's the sweetness. And I even think there's a touch of that in Kohala, when he basically says, so listen, you can go and schlep and find your meaning, but don't forget at this moment to go eat your bread in joy and drink your wine and enjoy the folks who are around you, because that's what God gives you in the world. So I wish everyone a really sweet rest of your Sukkot. This week we'll have Simchat Torah on, we have Shmini Atzeret and Yizkor on Monday. and Simchas Torah Monday night and Tuesday. We'll begin the reading of Torah. Next week, Rabbi Gellman, Rabbi Hirsch, and I, God willing, will be back to begin the cycle of Torah all over again. How many years have we been doing this? A while now. And we'll begin the reading of Torah with Breshit, with the creation of the world, which is such a rich and powerful, powerful story. So we'll begin that together. Please take note that following this, we're going to be moving the broadcast moment of this to 8:30 in the morning, because we've been told that some people are having a hard time getting to shul on time. So you can find our Torah study on Facebook, YouTube, and elsewhere anytime you want it. But we're going to begin it at 8:30, so folks can tune in a little bit earlier in the morning. Wish you Hag Sameach and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.